Hey there, I'm Dave Erickson, and I wanted to step through a basic tutorial of how I run remote D&D games. I'm using three tools here. I'm using a tool called Roll20, which is my virtual tabletop. I'm using a website called DNDBeyond. Now, this is where I keep all my characters. I have subscriptions to both, but each has a free tier, which has some limitations, but they're both excellent. For D&D Beyond, I keep the characters there because, well, the web app is just excellent. And they do a really good job of having the updates pretty much on the really close to the day that new books are released. I like buying digital copies of the books there. I find it just to be a great experience and really well built. Kind of all the modern stuff I want out of a good web app. I use Roll20 because it's just a really simple tabletop tool, and it's been pretty accessible to a lot of my players. If they're up for playing D&D online, Roll20 is sort of the I think probably the easiest to use tool for a player. For a DM, there's some learning curve, but let me show you what my setup so you can see where I'm at after running things in Roll20 for about a year and a half. I have a computer background, so learning this for me took a little bit of reading through wikis and things, but these days there's a lot of stuff on YouTube to help you out. So once you're inside of Roll20, inside a game, there's other tutorials that'll show how to set up a game and things that you can do. You'll have your characters set up, but for this video I really want to highlight the integration between Roll20 and D&D Beyond, because I'm explicitly making the choice to use Roll20 as my tabletop, and D&D Beyond is where I keep my characters. So just to kind of explain this world here, let me just get some kind of new lines in here to help separate it out. I'm here in the chat, and you're seeing these characters that are set up, and I've set up a couple of macros. Macros are sort of lines of text commands that you set up as buttons inside, ready to go. The first one I have, and I always have this available when I'm testing whether or not my macros work, is a talk to myself button. This literally just echoes to the screen, talk to myself. So here I am talking to myself. How did this button get there? I went into the macro section here, and then there's a bunch of stuff from the module that I've loaded. But I made this macro myself, and it's literally just a command that I pulled off the wiki. I can never remember what it is, but I save it and I put it in my bar here by clicking the in bar button. I've got another macro which is really specific to the mini that I have clicked. That's my initiative macro that I pulled off of the Roll20 wiki. So here when I click on a mini, its initiative the initiative button shows up because I have it selected as a token action. Now this bunch of code here takes a little while understanding the syntax of the macros to really understand what that does and why it does it that way. It's not important that you understand it right now, but realize that being able to really quickly hit a button so that you can take all your NPCs and have them added to the initiative is important. So you'll figure that out. There's a bunch of tutorials, but this is just something you'll have to figure out. So here I've rolled initiative. I'm talking to myself so nobody can see it, but if I rolled initiative for, say, a couple of these characters and added them to the initiative, now they're gonna show up in here. Let me move all the turns, do that again. So I'm gonna roll initiative for a couple of these characters. They're gonna show up. I don't think it's gonna sort them right away. Maybe I got lucky, maybe it didn't sort them right away. It's kind of hard to tell until I roll somebody who's out of initiative order. Yeah, so there, that one got added, and I would go in there and say, hey, make them all descending, and there they are in initiative order. So that's great, but let's get into kind of these commands and a little bit more there to kind of build up the justification for why you do need an integration between the character sheet and Roll20. So I've got a text editor up here, and I'll explain. If I type in just something my character says, hello, it gets echoed in just like a chat program. But if I start using these / commands like / roll1d20, it'll roll a d20 here. I've got all the settings set up so that all the audio and video of Roll20 is turned off. I use Skype or Zoom or something like that when I'm playing. If I don't want to type as much, I can also just type / r1d20. Same thing. / roll and / r, the same thing. And I can do full dice math in here. So I can do roll a d20 plus 5. If I put my mouse over the actual roll, here, or I can see I rolled a 3 plus a 5. It shows me the math. Oftentimes, though, when I'm rolling, I want to have just everything in one place. I want it to be tight and compact. And I'm play 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, so I need to know whether or not I'm rolling with advantage. Sometimes my GM doesn't tell me that I have advantage until after I've rolled because, well, the game's going quickly. So there's a lot that you can do here. So there's an ability called Inline Rolling. That's where I put in some text, and then in 2 square brackets, so open square brackets and closed square brackets, 2 of those on each side, I can put the dice math. And then that roll happens. Oh, I got a critical hit. So that roll happens. If I put my mouse over it, it'll show me that I rolled a 20 plus a 5. If I want to re-roll the same thing, I put my mouse, I click inside that little text box, and I hit the up arrow on my keyboard, and it'll just repeat the last roll. So that's really useful. And there, I just lucked out and got a crit the first time. So that's how you get dice math to get right next to text and have it all print out on one line without all this extra gunk. And that'll help me format maybe even multi-line rolls. So I'm going to select this multi-line roll that I have. And you'll notice that I've got the to hit roll in there twice with a little pipe. So that's a character that's sort of right above the return key. It's like shift backslash on an American keyboard. It's different in different places. It's a pipe character. So I do that because that's sort of the die on the left is my primary d20, and the die on the right is my secondary d20. So if the DM decides, oh, you had advantage, or oh, you had disadvantage, I only have to maintain one sort of macro for that, and it'll just be both. And if when I don't have advantage or disadvantage, I just always read the one on the left. You just have that be the kind of the standard for most of Roll20 players. And then it'll here I've got my damage, which is the same every time, whether I hit or miss. Just ignore it if you miss. I've got it down here. It'll roll it every time no matter what. And if the DM says I hit, I don't have to hit anything else. I already know that I have the damage there, which is great because, similarly when I play in a store, I'll tend to roll my damage and my 2 attack roll in one go just to keep the table moving. So that's how you do that. That's how you kind of cook these. And I have a lot of my players just have a little text editor, and they've done the work ahead of time, and when they level up, they upgrade their character sheet. You'll notice that a lot of the players online, maybe even the ones that are sponsored by Roll20, use the character sheet program inside of Roll20. I'm not a big fan. Use your personal preference. There is a full character sheet builder in there, and it'll make a character sheet where you can click on things, and it'll like click on your sword, and it'll roll your sword, and it'll put a lot more templating around these, so it's a lot more readable and nice. But all that ability is there for you to use. So this is effectively what the character sheet is building and making buttons for you that do these big templated things that you can do a lot here, right? So I've got, here's a character. It's got a morning star and is rolling and has some damage in there. Great, that's fine. And this actually looks quite pretty. It's very easy to read quickly. But how would you make and maintain these if you're not using a character sheet program? Well, you'd have to really carefully edit this big nasty piece of what is effectively code. It's configuration, but it's code right here. That's no fun. Ain't nobody got time for that. So enter D&D Beyond. So D&D Beyond is my character sheet system of choice. I'm a patron of kind of both of these tools. I kickstarted Roll20 back in the day. Initial, whatever you call it, backer. So in D&D Beyond, here, I've got one of my characters. And it's a pre-made character for me just playing around with the tools. It's this guy right here. And so I have the character sheet all loaded up here. He's a first level wizard or something. So, but I also have a Chrome plugin called Beyond20. So this is installed. It's up here. And in Chrome, you can limit which web pages a plugin can read and make changes to. I highly recommend that. You don't want every plugin that you load having access to everything you're doing on the web. So you can right click and kind of change what it can read and write there, and be careful. But once I've got that loaded and active, extra buttons start showing up in the D&D Beyond character sheet to connect what's on this page with what's on this page. So if I go to, say, this character's dagger, it added an extra button here saying Beyond 20. So I can actually roll and here comes the dagger roll from that character. That's super cool. Because when I level up in D&D Beyond, all the stats will come with it, right? So even imagine like I just live in here, let's say I take this dagger and I customize it, and I make this a silver dagger with a plus hit bonus that's ridiculous, right? And I edit that. Now in D&D Beyond, that's I got a plus 11 hit save or hit attack there, and I roll it, and I put my mouse over here. There's that plus 11. It's fantastic. And this is super easy. My players know how to use D&D Beyond. They tend not to be experts at Roll20, so this makes it really kind of easy for them to keep their characters up to date, not to have to do a lot of work when they level up their characters. In Adventurers League, you're going to be leveling up your characters a lot, so constantly maintaining Roll20, that's not something they're going to do. They're going to have to pick a character sheet program if they're going to use the virtual tabletop eventually. So this is great. With spells, it'll do a lot. I can roll all my ability skill, my ability checks, right? So I can roll my con save there. I can roll my con ability check. I can roll a strength save just by kind of anywhere that it's got that die. I can make a roll. And in a spell, so let's go down to a sleep spell. I can click on it, and I can either sort of cast it here, or I can find the die roll that's buried in the casting. Click that and say, oh, how many hit points of sleep damage did I do? It's red because at least one of the die rolls in there was a minimum of 1. That's not necessarily a good tell of whether it's a crit hit. It was multiple die rolls. But I can also, maybe if I don't want to cast it again, I can always kind of copy and paste the whole spell stats into the chat. Say if I'm debating with the DM or trying to explain how the spell works, I can just show it to everybody. It's a really quick way to do rules referencing. It's very nice. Another thing to note is that this is sort of seeing the GM view of Roll20. Say I'm in D&D Beyond, I go to my creations and I go to my encounters, and I pull up, say, a scene from a Adventure League. There's a scout. Inside of here, if I open up the full view of a monster, in this case a scout, I can roll all of its abilities too. So if I just have a tab open for every monster, if I've got it in D&D Beyond, now I've got it in Roll20 for being able to roll, all of their. Here's the longbow, critical hit, longbow. So here it actually added the crit damage too. It has a little bit more coding built in, so some things are more selective. So that's very nice. So that's the combination. I've got Roll20, I've got D&D Beyond, and I've loaded this browser plugin, Beyond20, and I've limited which websites Beyond20 has access to. And as a result, I can run really quickly, and frankly, I buy a lot of the modules on D&D Beyond. I find it really useful. I like being able to take everything with me on my iPad, and when I'm here in front of my webcam running D&D virtually with my friends, I have access to everything, all of my monsters, right? So you just pull up, I don't know, Orcus, right? So there he is. Here's Orcus, and guess what? Orcus hits hard, right? So there you go. All right, thanks everybody. Hope this helped. I'm happy to post other things for the community if people want to see how this works. I think this is a really good combo after using it for a while. I find a lot of people are probably going to end up doing this, or they're going to end up maybe using the character sheets that are built into Roll20 if they like those more. I just prefer this way. All right, thanks everybody.